Hello and welcome. Welcome to another episode of Taboo Talk, featuring your very own pastor, me, Lady Charmaine Day. Today's show is guaranteed to be full of sensitive, intimate, natural conversations rarely talked about in the spiritual community. So now get ready for your spiritual consultation. Are you ready? Great, let's begin. How are you doing, beautiful? I know you are doing wonderful, marvelous, special, and phenomenal, because those are all the adjectives I would use to describe you. You simply are phenomenal. You take the time to be so loving, kind, uplifting, and nurturing to all the people that you meet. And you're so vital to your home and community that I just want to give you a warm round of applause for being so special and incredible. Yay! Continue to do what you're doing because you make God look great. And you make people feel really special, which is really important. I have two announcements for beginning the show. If you haven't already, please download onto your Android or your iPhone for free the Lady Charmaine Day app. This app is my gift to you for being a part of the ministry and for listening and watching this show. The Lady Charmaine Day app has features that allow you to listen to Taboo Talk radio show from your phone, watch the new Taboo Talk Virtual show from your phone, look at my blog, and you can send in a prayer request by calling me. I will call you back and tell you what scripture I'm standing on for your prayer. So please, download the Lady Charmaine Day app today. Also, when you have a chance, please visit my website, www.ladycharmaineday.com. There you can read more about this ministry, learn about Taboo Talk, see up-to-date pictures, read my Facebook fan page and blog, and receive free gifts. And while at ladycharmaineday.com, please visit the store to make a purchase. In fact, there's a couple of things I'm highlighting in the store, like my book, Size 7.5, Walk a Mile in My Shoe. It's my autobiography from 0 to 35, and it tells you how I got started. The second book that I'm highlighting is a sequel called Heed Simple. It details from 35 to 40, and also this self-help program that I have called Heed Simple that will help you have a good life. I'm also highlighting my book, Mind FUCC, which talks about the Bible and makes you go, for having such an interesting title, right? And my last book is a book of wisdom for happiness, peace of mind, personal growth, and healthy lifestyle called Lady Day's Pearls of Wisdom. And all my books sell on my store and my website. So please make a purchase. Your purchases help me keep my ministry going. And I thank you so much for your support. And now let me begin the show by saying thank you. Thank you so much for watching. It's because of your support that this show is so successful. And I thank you and I pray for you all the time. Well, today we are in the presence of some subject matter experts of the lived condition. Clara Kiely and Stephanie Collins are here today to share with us about good mental health and coping strategies. And let me tell you more about them. Clara Kiely is a native of Brooklynite who took a detour through St. Louis to complete her master's in social work. As the outreach coordinator at the National Alliance of Mental Illness of New York City, she oversees outreach efforts at events in the community and coordinates programs and workshops, including the public education event lecture series and the In Our Own Voice presentation program. Stephanie R. Collins is a bilingual peer specialist at the Institute for Family Health Center for Counseling at Walton, On Track, New York, since November 2017. Stephanie has 35 years of experience within nonprofit and public sector in the capacity of administrative, direct line social worker, i.e. bilingual case manager, clinical supervisor, group facilitator, and peer specialist, and teaching experience in the performing arts, academic, and after-school settings. In addition, Stephanie has worked for state and municipal organizations in Africa, Latin America, and throughout the United States. Help me help you by welcoming the subject matter experts in the lip conditioners, Clara Kiely and Stephanie Collins. Yay! Clara, I'll start with you. How are you doing today, Clara?
I am hanging in there, Lady Charmaine. Thanks so much for hosting this. As Lady Charmaine said, my name is Clara. I am the Outreach Coordinator and Inner on Voice Coordinator at the National Alliance on Mental Illness of New York City, or NAMI NYC. The National Alliance on Mental Illness, if you couldn't guess from the name, is a national organization, but I represent the New York City affiliate. So our office, which is currently closed due to the pandemic, is located in Manhattan, and we serve New York City. Right now, since all of our programs are remote, we're serving a broader area than that. We are serving people in Long Island, in Westchester, in New Jersey, in Chicago, in Texas. So we're really opening our doors to make sure that everyone who needs help during this time is able to get it. We have a lot of different services available remotely right now. Almost all of our regular support groups that used to meet in person are now meeting remotely via Zoom. So the information to join is available to anybody who wants to get support on our website at naminyc.org/calendar. We have our whole monthly calendar for the month of July available there, and you can look through and see the groups that we have to offer. We have groups both for people dealing with their own mental health issues, as well as groups for family members and friends, or anybody who's supporting somebody who's dealing with a mental health issue and needs help to better learn how to support that person while also taking care of themselves. We know that it can be really isolating and really lonely to deal, to support somebody who's really struggling. And we want to make sure that those people also get the support that they need in order to also support their loved ones. So we have groups for that as well. All of our groups are peer facilitated. So our bipolar support group for people living with bipolar disorder is facilitated by people living with bipolar disorder. Our support group for parents of children and adolescents is facilitated by people who themselves are parents, and have also gone through a facilitator training and have gone through training in order to be able to lead the groups, but are also working from their own lived experience and what they've gone through. So it's a space where people can share, knowing that everybody there has been in their shoes to some degree. Although we also know that everybody's situation is different. We have, I want to highlight a couple other groups that we have going right now. We have every Wednesday our Connections group for anybody dealing with any mental health diagnosis. On the second and fourth Fridays, we have our Black Minds Matter group, which is specifically for people, anyone who identifies as Black and deals with a mental health issue. At the end of the month, we're going to be beginning our Spanish language family support group, Grupo de Apoyo para Familiares. So we're really excited to have that going again remotely. We also have groups such as Hearing Voices for anybody that identifies as a voice hearer, family of friends with people with mood disorders, and then social groups like the poetry workshop, our weekly yoga remote group, our music group on one Saturday a month, and more. So you can look at the calendar and see what other groups we have available if nothing that I've mentioned thus far piques your interest. We're also offering classes, which are offered for free as well. We're offering those remotely, again, both for people dealing with mental health issues and for family members and friends. And you can go to our website, naminyc.org, to find out more about those classes and find out how you can enroll. We also have, again, via Zoom, we're offering a number of educational opportunities for people to find out more about different topics having to do with mental health. Later this month, on July 21st, we're having a panel discussion talking about our mental health emergency response system in New York City and how to better structure that emergency response system to remove police from the response and really bring in professionals to respond to those crises that are trained and capable of responding without escalating a mental health crisis, because unfortunately we've seen that happen too often. That's just a quick teaser to the kinds of things that we have available right now. I'm going to turn it over to see if there are any questions or anything that I should elaborate on.
I have some questions for you, Clara. Is it true that everyone who works at NAMI has either a condition or a loved one with a condition?
So everyone who facilitates groups or teaches the class or teaches classes or participates in one of our mentor match programs is somebody with lived experience. Not everyone who is a staff member at NAMI, who works, who coordinates the different programs, is someone with lived experience, but everyone who facilitates the programs themselves is somebody who has that personal lived experience.
Why do you think that's so vital?
Because I think that, I think living through something gives you a perspective that learning about it or getting a degree doesn't necessarily give you. And now people can have both, right? I think training and learning and getting that expertise, learning from other experts is really important as well. But there are aspects of that living through something and having that personal experience, only that can really give you, and that's a perspective that we really value and I think is really important in creating community because it builds trust. I think sometimes when people know that somebody else kind of knows what it's like or knows what something is like, that creates a sense of trust that that is really helpful.
Yes. And also, how diverse is NAMI New York City Metro?
We have different levels of diversity in different areas. So the people who come to the groups and come to the classes represent all kinds of different communities, both ethnic communities, racial communities, national communities, language communities. You know, we have folks that come from all over, that come from a lot of different backgrounds, that come from different socioeconomic backgrounds. So definitely I would say there's a pretty wide range of perspectives that people have to bring. In terms of staff, there's also a pretty wide range. Particularly, I think there's, I think I'd have to do the math, but I would say a quarter to a third of the staff is African American, which is really great in terms of giving a broader perspective as well.
Excellent. Excellent. Did our audience member have a question? Hold on a second. Unmute your mic.
Okay. My question is, recently someone asked me for help because they are an immigrant in the United States. And as an immigrant, they come up against other kind of obstacles. And I kind of try to reach out and help them find the right kind of support to get what they needed. But even though through people I knew in New York, I had a really hard time. So is that something that NAMI addresses, or?
That's a great question. There are relatively few resources, I think, especially for people who have limited English proficiency, it's very hard to find mental health resources. I think there definitely are things that are available. As I mentioned, we've had a family support group in Spanish for a while, and we had to pause it when we went remote because we weren't able to get the facilitators the facilitators weren't available to do it remotely, but we've just started that up again. And I know that that's, I think, a really important resource for people. There are organizations that offer, mental health counseling and mental health services. I think Spanish is probably the easiest language to find it in, but even that can be pretty difficult. So it's definitely a struggle. And actually, we're hoping to have an educational event on that topic, immigration and mental health, later on in the summer, because I think it is, as a Spanish speaker, I end up doing a lot of that work, and I've seen firsthand how hard it is to find adequate services for people.
Well, Clara, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Thanks so much for the question. It's a great one.
Okay. And the reason why we're doing this show today is because July is National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. And all month long, I'll be bringing on speakers to talk about mental health in the minority community. And that's why I have Clara and Stephanie here today to share with us resources. That's what Clara just did. She just shared with us a load of resources that we didn't even know was available before, that we can use now to help us have good mental health. And I want you to know that it's all free. Keyword free. NAMI New York City Metro offers all its programs. It's so diverse and it's free. So please join the NAMI New York City Metro. Come out and be a part of the programs. You can do it virtually from your home and get the support that you need.
Thank you so much, Lady Charmaine. That's a great plug.
It's the truth.
With that, I think, shall I turn it over to our presenter for the day?
Yes.
I would like to introduce Stephanie Cologne, who is going to be our presenter, our Inner Own Voice presenter.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Charmaine, Lady Charmaine, for inviting me. I want to start off with sharing that my full name, Stephanie Renee Cologne. I'm 61 years young. I have been knowing my husband for the last 35 years, which is a lot. We have 3 amazing adult children and 5 beautiful grandchildren. As Lady Charmaine had mentioned before, I lived and worked in Central America, Africa, the Caribbean, Europe, and the United States. I've worked in the field of social services, education, recreation, and my most favorite field is the performing arts. I attended Long Island University, Columbia Graduate School of Business, and the Silberman School of Social Work. My hobbies are acting, cooking, dancing, and singing, and most of all, I love swimming. I have a turtle who's very big, 2 community fish. So my purpose in sharing my story today with you is to shed light into the world of people living with mental health challenges and their relationship with others. My presentation will be divided in 3 sections: what happened, what helps, and what's next. Following my story, I will be sharing time for discussion, questions, and answers. So without further ado, let's get started. So since 4 years of age, until 14, I was plagued and labeled having mental health challenges. In particular, when I was 5 years old, I was named by my kindergarten teacher as being hypersensitive and excessively crying. And this happened at a parent conference meeting. Along with that, particularly in junior high school, I went to private school where I was the only Black child in a rich, white, predominantly white school, which I was bullied and constantly called the N-word. This situation continued on, and I'd like to share that in 8th grade, I was an A student, but I was so traumatized by this experience that I failed all my classes and had several bouts of suicidal ideation. The backdrop to all of these experiences is that I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse by family and friends. In my early 20s, I had achieved many milestones academically and professionally, particularly as a performing artist. But it all becomes a blur because I was always depressed and manic. I had my first major breakdown in my 30s when I lived in Miami, Florida in the 1990s, in the midst of the devastation of Hurricane Andrew. My husband was addicted to crack cocaine and subsequently was incarcerated. Our children and I lived in a homeless shelter due to the situation of living under a hurricane situation. I was a therapeutic cultural arts coordinator at a clinic in Liberty City, Miami, Florida. And in that situation, I got so much reward and encouragement by working with people living with HIV, AIDS, and problems with substance use. I was a good worker. I was a terrific parent. But in a day and week, I found myself unable to get out of bed, brush my teeth, wash my face, take my children to school, and I even didn't have the courage to call out sick. Luckily, I had a friend who had enough gumption to come and check on me, encourage me to get out of bed, clean up, and send my children to school. But moreover, she suggested that I see the psychiatrist at our clinic. I was very ashamed and embarrassed to go to the clinic where we service people that might look down on me for having a problem at this point in time. I had several sessions with the psychiatrist, and she then diagnosed me with bipolar. It was hard to accept the diagnosis, especially in those days, the medication that they prescribed. And as a dance instructor and performer, made me gain weight. And I was very vain and I didn't want to gain weight. So eventually I stopped using the medication and stopped seeing the psychiatrist. I moved back to New York City and was going very quickly into a slow spiral downwards. And it was like being a roller coaster, which eventually took me to being hospitalized in 1994 and 1995. I felt like I was on a train to nowhere, even though I was a functional bipolar person that tried her best to be a good mother and to be a good person. Does anyone else have anything to share about what happened to them, please do so.
Stephanie, I'd like to share, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to share with us your story. It took a lot of courage to come forward and speak openly and honestly with this listening, the watching audience, your story. And I just want to say I salute you. I'm moved by what you've been through, and I'm sorry that you went through so much traumatic stuff in your life. And as a survivor of child abuse, what made you continue to go on doing well in school despite what was going on at home?
I felt very pressured unconsciously and covertly by my parents. First of all, to keep the secret that, I was being abused as a child. And then, which I'll share later on, being in the performing arts really saved my life. And the expectations, especially going to school and cultural institutions where I was the only Black child, that I felt the pressure to be 150% better than all the other white students. So it was a combination of the arts and just my will to be as the best I could be that kept me going.
I hear you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Does anyone else have any other questions? Yes, we have a question from Gina. Hold on. Gina, can you unmute your mic?
So Stephanie, can you explain how being the only Black person in a white school affected you mentally?
Well, first of all, being called the N-word and being bullied was extremely traumatizing. And it happened daily. It wasn't just coincidentally or, once a month, but this was the daily harassment that I received. And that type of trauma really affected the way I went through life. And I didn't have a break. It was in school. I had a full scholarship at Martha Graham School of Contemporary Dance. So I had to be scrutinized differently because I looked different, both because of my color and my body shape. Because even though I was thinner than I am now at 61, I was never under 100 pounds, when I was, soaking wet. So with that kind of pressure, really just compiled insecurity and anxiety and, the overall post-traumatic stress that eventually got added to my diagnosis of bipolar.
Thank you. And Stephanie, would you like to move on to what helps?
Yes. So I had mentioned that once I got the diagnosis in Florida, that I was non-compliant, as they like to say in the medical model. And in being non-compliant, I eventually went through dozens of therapists and even more psychiatrists that didn't quite get what I was going through, and being prescribed all type of medication that just didn't work. So finally, by 2009, now this is after I said 1994, I was going through changes. I just want to mention another example that when I went off the medication, I was a clinical supervisor and I was so manic that I didn't sleep for 3 days at a time to meet a deadline of audit from the state. So it was that kind of, I was in desperate need of help. And in 2009, finally got a treatment team together that was committed to listening to me and making me a part of my own treatment. So I was able to take ownership of it. And today I have a therapist that I can be myself with. I can talk the talk and walk the talk and say what I mean and mean what I say. I have a psychiatric nurse practitioner who understands that I don't need as much medication as I did initially after being diagnosed, and really wants to help me to make sure that I'm physically and mentally positive as far as my well-being is concerned. Probably more important than all of that, I'm a full-time peer specialist with a program called On Track New York. And I work with young people who are have first-time experience with psychosis. And that experience really puts me in touch with the need to be positive in sharing my lived experience and to notice their potential to thrive in spite of living with first-time episode of psychosis. It also helps that I love to swim, lecture, and sing in the choir. And more importantly, it helps that I believe in a quote that was written by Pat Deegan, a prolific mental health advocate, that says, "I'm a person, not an illness." Would anybody like to share what helped them?
One of the things in my own experience, I could relate to what you said about not so much therapists. I had really good therapists, but psychiatrists, you know, trying to get them to listen to you. They just want to, I always feel like they just want to, you know, first thing you say to them, the next thing they want to do is just write you a prescription. And that's been my experience. I've been under-medicated, over-medicated. I finally have a psychiatrist who's really in sync with where I'm at, but it's taking me 16 years, you know, and it's a struggle. It's a real struggle for people. And you have to, one of the things that I had to learn to do, and I'm most sure, Stephanie, you did too, is advocate for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I try to tell people to do that because, you know, it's because we have the stigma of our illness, we feel less than sometimes when we go in these doctor's office. They're supposed to have the answers, but they don't know me. They are not in my body, you know, and they don't know what's going to affect me. And I've had to fight that, and I've always was compliant. I was so compliant that I got sick from taking so much medication. Mm-hmm. So I'm not compliant, but I am. I say I look at it as a partnership now, and I get to have a voice. Mm-hmm. And I hear that's like similar, like what you probably went through the process as well.
Definitely. I appreciate you acknowledging that we have that in common, because the idea of having a collaboration between the medical team and yourself is so empowering. Right. And once you are able to acknowledge that, the more you can advocate for yourself.
Right. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Lady Charmaine, I think you were trying to talk, but you're muted.
Can you hear me now? Thank you. What I was saying, Stephanie, I was so struck by your story that you were with the wrong medication and you didn't have the right treatment team all the way up until 2009. How many years did you go before you had gotten the right treatment?
Well, we're talking about the 90s until 2009. That's a long time.
That is a long time.
Yeah, it's a very long time. So I held on by a string because I was in the helping field and trying to be an example for others, because I went from case management to clinical supervisor, part-time peer specialist, aerobic instructor. The funny thing is, in the New Yorker, there was a cartoon strip, and the man was in the room with all of these awards and medals, and his friend said, "How did you get time to achieve all of this?" And the person with the medals and awards said, "That's the benefit of being bipolar." So with that being said, that's probably the best thing that came from my struggle, is that I was able to be so eclectic in my career, pursuance.
Amen.
But it was my life was extremely unmanageable and painful. I had to be a clown and, masked, but behind that mask, I was crying and in a terrible amount of pain.
Mm. Mm. How did you deal with the pain?
Well, good thing I didn't use substances. I had a real fear of doing that. Because I had a sister who was addicted to substances, and then I had mentioned my husband. And so I had witnessed firsthand what it does. So I had, the fear of God about getting, self-medicating. And I just was involved in risky behavior all the way around. I was a shopaholic, got into very risky situations. It's just by the grace of God that I'm not living with HIV and AIDS. That's just how perilous my life was.
Mm. Mm. Thank you so much for sharing that information with us. Does anyone else have a question?
I have a question. I would love it. You mentioned being a case manager and being kind of in social services for so much of your career. How do you think? And I think there's many people that have this experience of being not being able to share what they're really going through because they're helping other people, and there's this idea that if you're not okay, what business, if I'm not okay, what business do I have, trying to help somebody else? This idea that somebody has to sort of be okay before they can take on that role of helper. Can you talk a little bit about ways that you think that sort of social services and like this, helping professions could be more, both create more space for people to not be okay, and just kind of, how can social services as a field of employment make it more okay for people not to be okay?
Clara, I have to commend you for being so insightful, because has been my complaint all along. School academia has been guilty of stigmatizing those of us that are living with mental health conditions, and to the extent of really making people shy away from admitting that they have this lived experience for, feeling threatened and the possibility of being ostracized. I know firsthand, when I was in social work school, that was my experience. And when I had to go on medical leave, I had a dean say, don't come back to school until you get your mental and financial life together. Just, completely dismissing the possibility of it not being that simple. And here, these are people that we trust our lives with, you know, and it's just the whole training that people get that makes them ashamed. And also, we live in a system that it's discouraged to share in any way that could be appropriate. I mean, I agree that we need to have boundaries in social services, but it should never be to the extent that people can learn, you know, see the humanity in social service provider with having the opportunity to share appropriately. And that's the reason why I've had so many different jobs in my lifetime, you know, in the last 40 years, but I get so much freedom, even though I don't get paid the same as I did when I was a clinical supervisor, being a peer specialist, because I can be transparent about who I am and what I am in the context of living with mental health concerns.
That's excellent. And it must feel so freeing to be a peer specialist.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We need to be paid equitably for the work, and that's where the activism is involved. But in the meantime, you know, money can't buy the happiness that I find in doing the work.
Oh, that's beautiful. And can you please share with us what's next for you?
Well, to share what's next, I have to share the fact that I feel proud of how the performing arts have saved my life, that having the opportunity to be a choreographer and dance instructor with national dance companies in Costa Rica, Cuba, Kenya, Nicaragua, and the United States. I treasure the fact that I had my own dance company called Qualitative Leap in New York City. And even now you can find me on the YouTube performing a theatrical funny monologue that people are still watching, and it's been on since 2012. I look forward to creating my own one-woman show, The Sky is the Limit.
All right.
And with that, I want to reiterate how much joy I get from working with young people who show a potential to living with something that doesn't have to define them. And I seem to forget a lot of times, because even though I'm in treatment and I'm doing well, and not only am I managing, but I'm enjoying life, that today I'm not only an asset to my family, but to my community and the world.
We have a question. Gina, unmute your mic.
Yeah. What was the pivotal thing that made you realize that you weren't your illness? You were more than your illness. What was the
Advocating for my son. My son is living with paranoid schizophrenia. And there was a time where he was catatonic, and the medical team was not listening to me when I was sharing with them that he's not able to take medication orally, and that he could do better if they use injectable medication for him. And I had to fight tooth and nail for his existence, because I really felt like his life was being threatened for them not listening to them. And that experience of being a parent advocating for their child made me realize that I had to do everything possible to advocate for my own life.
Wow. Profound. Thank you.
Thank you. How did it feel traveling to all those different countries and dancing?
It was amazing, because where I felt, you know, I feel like I was an excellent dancer, not just because I was technically trained, but because I was dancing for my life. And with that energy to survive made me an exceptional performer in so many ways. And I found out more about myself as a Black woman living outside the United States and experiencing racism from that approach towards living really impacted me in both a positive and negative way and made me stronger for it.
All right.
Wow.
All right. Well, Stephanie, thank you so much for sharing your powerful testimony. Everyone was moved. I was moved by it. And you are an incredible person. You're getting claps for the audience. Yes, yes. And Megan's clapping. Everyone's clapping. Give you a round of applause. And Clara, thank you so much for sharing all the resources that are available to us through NAMI New York City Metro. You did a phenomenal job on that. Let me give you a round of applause. Yes. Thank you. Let me tell you, you guys, you blew me away. I'm just like, wow. This is Taboo Talk, and we come here bringing the best of the best of the best. You hear me? And that's why we had Stephanie and Clara come today to share with you about NAMI New York City Metro's resources and programs and helpline, and for Stephanie to share with you her own personal experience of living with mental illness and the lived condition. And we had such a good time today. Would everyone agree?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, yes. So now I want to end the show because we have used up all of our time. Is almost out of time. And we have come to the end of the episode. Do you have any final thoughts, Clara or Stephanie, that you would like to share before I end the show?
I just want to say it's always really moving to me to hear your story, Stephanie. So thank you so much for sharing it with us as always.
It was my pleasure. And I know each time I'm able to share it, I find out something new about myself and really is empowering. So I thank you all for being here and listening to me.
Thank you. And thank you to the audience for being here, for participating, for your beautiful questions. They were insightful, they were thoughtful, and I appreciate you. Thank you so much to the audience. Well, we have come to the end of our show. This episode of Taboo Talk was done because you are very, very special, deserving nothing less than the very best and what God has promised you. And God has promised you a wonderful, peaceful, happy, joyful, prosperous, abundant life. Continue seeking God's face in all that you do, and the wonderful life will occur for you. Taboo Talk, featuring me, Lady Charmaine Day, exists to help transform your mind, body, and spirit, utilizing the principles of Jesus Christ. Keep tuning in and watching for Word in Season. I promise I'll bring people like Clara and Stephanie, who are subject matter experts in the lived experience, on the show to share with you, to help you, to inform you, to enlighten you, and to take you to the next level on your spiritual journey, because you deserve it. Well, until next time, take care of yourself and stay special. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Bye, sweetie.
Bye.